This is a Global Original Podcast. Well, these podcasts have been building up to this day for quite a while. I thought I'd give you a flavour of what happened on the night. Nick Ferrari was on air when we left the European Union, and I followed on after him, riding on the wave of patriotic fervour that was all about. Hope filled the air, and a few people were relieved that after 3 years of debating it, we wouldn't ever have to talk about Brexit again. If only we knew then what we know now. I'm glad I wasn't on at 11 o'clock because there's no way I could have mustered up so much enthusiasm for the project. There's a lot of enthusiastic people outside, though. I mean, London is heaving at the moment. It's very, very unusual for so many people, even on a Friday or Saturday night, to be out on the streets as they are right now. And one man who is in among them is Theo Usherwood, who is in Parliament Square. I just heard him say, "No, I can't hear anything," so that's probably a bad sign.
Can you hear me talking into the microphone now?
Yes, I can. But you can't hear me. Never mind, we'll carry on regardless. We'll just chalk that down as my fault, I expect, because everything was working perfectly well when Nick Ferrari stood up and left. I take full responsibility. Some of the callers, I was listening coming in the car, and some of the callers, I was trying to fathom what my mood was. And it wasn't sad, and it wasn't distraught. It was bemusement, mostly. That I think that was summed up by one elderly gent who called in and said that he couldn't wait for England to get back to how it used to be when he was 21. And I thought, yeah, that about sums it all up for me. The bad news, sir, is that that's never going to happen, just like your knees are never going to work again. And your back will never be as sprightly as it once was. And your jowls will not disappear. England's never going to get back to how it used to be. The world's moved on. But some people haven't, and they cling desperately to their youth, which I think is what underlines this entire issue. It's people yearning to turn the clock back to when they were younger and had a distant possibility of having sex again. Now, the last 3 and a bit years have been excruciating. At least we're not going to be talking about that anymore. We'll be talking about far more important and more dangerous and serious things, like our future place in the world and the nature of the trading agreements that we will fashion from a weaker position. We are finally out of the European Union. Well, we've got one foot out. But our dealings with the bloc are far from over. If the last 3 years have been entirely about hammering out the terms of our divorce from Brussels, it's been a reason given by the government that they haven't been able to get on with doing anything else. They've been solely concentrating on this Brexit lark, so they have been unable to fix the hospitals and put more police on the streets and to sort the welfare problems out and fix the potholes in the roads and all the rest of the things that are ailing the country, because they've been concentrating too hard on Brexit. We've heard that refrain over and over again. Well, the bad news is that Brexit was the easy part. The last 3 years was supposed to be the easy bit. What's coming up is the hard part. So how they can square not having enough time or manpower or person power to fix the problems of the country over the last 3 years, how they're going to suddenly fashion all that out of thin air now that the complicated part starts, I don't know. Maybe they've not only found a magic money tree, but a magic manpower tree, person power tree. So the terms of our divorce deal are yet to be decided, or rather, the terms of our parting. I guess the divorce has happened already, and now we must agree on our future relationship and try to fashion it as close as possible to how it was before we started on all this. What a position to be in. Desperately trying to get back to the profitable and entirely positive position that we used to have before we demanded to leave. Honestly, you couldn't make it up. I believe that Theo Usherwood can hear me now, and hopefully I can hear him too. Theo.
Very good morning to you.
Yes, good morning.
Nick. And we are, of course, outside the European Union. I am outside number 10 Downing Street. The crowd's looking on at the light show. The Cabinet Office is lit up in red, white and blue, the Union flag's colours, as is the Ministry of Defence across the road. The party from Parliament Square breaking up now, people making their ways home after watching Nigel Farage and his supporters, including Richard Tice, the chairman of the Brexit Party, and Anne Widdecombe, perhaps its most prominent member after Nigel Farage, giving speeches and leading sing-alongs to Land of Hope and Glory and the national anthem as they marked our departure from the European Union.
I came through some of the crowd that was streaming away on the stroke of 11. It seemed like they were all leaving. The bridges away from Parliament Square were absolutely rammed with people. They couldn't get away quick enough. And the sense that I got from them was it was a bit like an England-friendly football match. It
was a significant party. 2,000 or 3,000 people at least turned up to watch there wasn't a fireworks display, but the Big Ben bong over the speaker system, and there was a small fireworks display on stage which had been put up by Nigel Farage just outside Westminster Abbey in Parliament Square. It was good-natured. There was a moment when it might have turned nasty, but the police quickly prevented anti-fascist protesters from getting into Parliament Square to disrupt the event, and then it passed off once the Big Ben had bonged over the speaker system, because of course the campaign to try and ensure that famous bell tolled for Brexit at 11 p.m. didn't muster enough financial support, and therefore it didn't happen, and so it had to be played out over the speaker system. But once that had happened, then there was a quick rendition, as I said, of the national anthem, and everybody went home. There was nothing else really to see or do.
Did you say that there were 3,000 people there?
I mean, that's just my estimates from looking at it. From looking at how full Parliament Square was, I'd have put it at around 3,000 or 4,000 people.
Because
yes.
I was listening to some chap who described himself as a poet, who said that he had just played the biggest gig of his life on that very stage, and his estimation of the crowd was 50,000.
That would be quite toppy, I would think, Nick. I'm not sure it's as many as 50,000, but it was a sizable crowd of 3,000 or 4,000. But it was Sadiq Khan and his officials at the GLA had granted permission for the party to take place, but there were some quite strict rules laid down by officials at City Hall.
Yes, and forgive me for jutting in, but wasn't one of those rules no fireworks?
No fireworks, but there were small fireworks on stage.
Right.
So I think that they complied with the GLA officials.
Who is doing time for that now?
I don't know if anybody is doing time yet, Nick, but I think that they complied with the rules, and if they didn't comply with the rules, then I'll endeavour to follow up for you next week as to who has been sent to Wormwood Scrubs to pay for that particular misdemeanour.
The full majesty of the law should be brought down upon them.
Yes, well, I wouldn't hold my breath for that. I think that Sadiq Khan will let that one slide, and the Metropolitan Police will let that one go. But it passed off peacefully. Everybody's making their way home. You can probably hear the street sweepers are clearing up the bottles of champagne, the plastic glasses.
Well, you know
and the beer bottles.
Yeah, you know the party is over when the street sweepers arrive.
Okay.
Thank you, Theo. That's Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor, outside number 10 Downing Street, where the party is officially over, and now the hard work begins to get us back to the position that we were a couple of hours ago. to try to fashion some agreement with the European Union that looks like the agreement that we've just torn up. God, what a place to be in. Now, to Life on the Ocean Waves, where our reporter Lauren Roberts is currently on a ferry from Calais to Dover. Lauren.
Hi, Nick. That's right. So after fireworks and celebrations and some commiserations in Britain, it is a much quieter affair over here as we head from Calais to Dover.
Did you not miss your ferry? I
did indeed, but I've been assured that the delays weren't anything to do with Brexit. It was staff shortages, apparently. But still quite a good mood here on the boat. You wouldn't really know that anything has happened this evening.
Right, so the boat is full, empty? Describe what you're seeing.
Absolutely. It's definitely surprisingly busy given the time, obviously an hour ahead over here in France. A lot of holiday goers who just want to go over, as per usual, but also a lot of HGVs coming over. And obviously that's one of the main concerns with trade and everything, but they all seem to be quite well-spirited. Quite a contrast to some of those that I spoke to over in Dover earlier today as we made the crossing. They were very worried that the delays would back up onto the motorways and it'd be a lot more difficult for them to travel once Brexit is over and done with. Some even telling me that they may not come back to the UK once it's all done.
So those were foreign drivers coming with goods into the country or the other way around?
So I spoke to some people who were from Germany, they were holiday makers. Another man I spoke to actually was from the UK, but he's now moved to Spain. Because of the uncertainty, he said, well, I'll just sell my house here and I will move to Spain and that will be where I lived. And he seemed quite confident that he would be happy there and everything would be okay and he would still be able to come over when he wanted to. He said, we have a good friendship now, why shouldn't we in the future?
And the ferry that you're on, is it beribboned? Is it bedecked? Is there bunting?
Not a single sign of anything that has been happening, which I think is almost a good sign. Everyone's carrying on as per usual.
Right. Stiff upper lip, all that sort of thing. How's the crossing?
It's nice and smooth. As smooth as I think most people hope the next 11 months are going to be.
That's shipboard humour. All right, thanks very much, Lauren. There's Lauren, LBC's reporter, currently on a ferry from Calais to Dover. 0345 6060 973. I'd like to get some of your thoughts and opinions on this extraordinary day after an extraordinary 3 years in this extraordinary country. Let's have a call in East Yorkshire. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. I was wondering why we still think we've got an empire, why we still think that we are extraordinary. Listening to the last quarter of an hour of LBC before midnight, before you came on, it is as though people think that we have got some God-given right to continue as we did in the 1800s and early 1900s, and we are simply an average country. Not a bad country, but an average country doing average things. And why would we divorce ourselves from one of the major trading networks in the world? I haven't got an answer. I'm baffled by this.
Perhaps it's akin to having great beauty in your youth and then ruining its loss in old age. Whereas if you look like a troll in your youth, then you'd reach old age more contented, perhaps. I think that might inform what's going on here. It's a yearning for a return to our position where we bestrode the world and the map was pink.
But where are we going to go from here, Nick?
Well, I think it's a managed decline, is how I see it.
Well, I'm from an extremely rural area, and most of the people employed on the land now are from Eastern Europe,
right,
because the British people don't really want to do that. But they resent the fact that their jobs that they don't want to do have been taken by the Eastern Europeans.
That is,
which is absolutely weird.
It's bizarre. People don't want to do these jobs like cleaning and overnight security and farming jobs and labour, hard labour and things like that. And yet, I think you're right. They don't want to do them, but they resent other people doing them with the funny accents. It's bizarre. So I think that if people are expecting fewer Eastern Europeans or just foreigners in general, then they're going to be disappointed because our economy can't work without them. Mike, you need to get yourself a better phone because the one you're using at the moment is absolutely awful. But thanks for that. Robin Hounslow says, I know we're stuck with Bojo for the foreseeable, but I'm glad you'd agree that a great deal of blame for the excruciating pain of the last 3 years lies at the feet of the worst PM ever, Theresa May. Well, whether she's the worst PM ever or is something that you can argue about from now until the end of time. But I think she's been getting a bad press. Perhaps, I think, because she's a woman. I mean, the deal that Boris Johnson came back with and waved the piece of paper in the air and said, I have an agreement, seemed almost identical to the one that Theresa May came back with, that everybody poured scorn and ordure over. Jürgen in Kirkcaldy said, so 0.035% of London's population turned up for Nigel's party. Quite the turnout. Totally destroys the turnout for those pesky EU rallies we had in the last few years, says Jürgen, with more than a hint of sarcasm, I suspect. Ironically, the people who voted out in the greatest numbers are, by many accounts, those who are set to suffer the most for what it is that they've just done. Now, some people may take pleasure in that. You may think that, but I couldn't possibly comment. 0345 6060 973. This is LBC. I'm Nick Abbott on a momentous occasion. And let's have a reporter for LBC who's been at a Brexit pub party tonight, Josh Giltrap. Josh.
I've been at the Robin Hood pub in Boston tonight, and there was just this explosion of excitement around the stroke of 11. Chants of "We love you, Nigel, we do," England's coming home, the national anthem, and some people were simply chanting "Boris, Boris, Boris." It all broke out spontaneously. It's all had the feeling of a sort of New Year's Eve and bonfire night all rolled into one. I even saw some fireworks going off around sort of 3-4 o'clock as I was driving up the A52 to Boston. Now, when I was there, every surface seemed to have been covered in the Union Jack. It was either stapled to the wall or hanging off the rafters. One of them even had the words "Brexit now" attached to it.
The sense that I'm getting is that people have been led to believe that they've won something.
Yeah, I mean, there is a real sense of being listened to here. And to be honest, the overwhelming feeling was one of relief above all that. I mean, they've been waiting for this since 2016. You got to remember, Boston returned the largest Leave vote in the country in 2016, and really they've been waiting for this night ever since. So in many ways, it's no wonder they're blowing off so much steam tonight. Right.
So, but I wonder what they're going to be feeling in a year's time. It's an unfair question to ask, because how would you know? But it just occurs to me that people like that, who are celebrating so fervently this day, that they feel that they've thrown the shackles of the European Union off, how they're going to be feeling in a year's time when nothing's changed.
Well, there is a real confidence from people. I was talking to a man who works as a freight driver. He said, "Oh, well, you know, I know all the BMWs are lined up at the depot and they're ready to go." From their perspective, it's the European Union who are going to be relying on us and not the other way around. There is a real sense of pride. Not you laugh, but there is a real sense of optimism here, I suppose.
Well, it's not. I think optimism is the wrong word. It's like a sense of fantasy can become reality. This notion that Europe needs us more than we need them. I hear it so many times. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it is worth bearing in mind as well that the people I was speaking to tonight were 3 or 4 pints deep at a pub. So that maybe the optimism was a bit boosted.
Right. They could have been celebrating Thursday, and the atmosphere might have been the same. All right. Well, thanks for that, Josh. That's Josh Giltrap, who's been at a Brexit pub party tonight. Let's have Vauxhall. Oliver.
Oh.
Yes, Oliver.
Hello, it's really lovely to get on to speak to you.
Yes, Oliver. So you've been out tonight?
I was at Parliament Square.
Yes, how was that?
It was, there was not that many people there.
Really?
No, I'm taking the mickey. I can't believe what's just been said on LBC, that there was hundreds of people there.
Well, thousands, I think, was the...
No, it was most definitely hundreds.
No, he said a couple of thousand, maybe 3,000.
There was more than that.
Well, how many?
And I'm not in charge of mathematics. However,
you're disagreeing that there was 3,000, so give me an estimate.
On your broadcast, that was just...
Was there 5,000?
In the news.
10?
Yeah, there was more than that, yeah. I would have said between 15 and 20, at least.
Right, but how did you come to that conclusion?
Because I was present.
But you just told me that you weren't very good at that. And now you're certain.
No, I'm not certain of anything, but I can... I can be fairly sure that there was more than the hundreds that were said in your last news broadcast.
Okay, well, I was out making coffee during the news, but so I don't know about hundreds, but we had a... all right, well, okay, Oliver, nothing to get excited about. So there were hundreds. It's just how many hundreds is what's at issue.
Oh, come on. There was a lot. There was 15 or 20,000 at least.
Okay,
but why would you say on your broadcast that there was hundreds?
Oliver, I said nothing of the sort.
Okay, well, your news network said there was hundreds.
Okay, well, there certainly was hundreds, but there also may have been thousands. As I said, I was out making coffee. I didn't hear what the news was. We had a reporter there who estimated, I think he said 3,000, maybe 5 tops.
Then definitely your reporter needs retraining, I think.
Yeah, but Oliver, we've already established that you can't estimate the size of crowds. You said that yourself before then coming to an absolute stern conclusion that you are absolutely right about your ability to estimate the size of crowds. You've got to pick one. Either you can do it or you can't. Paul says, I couldn't afford a street party for our liberation from Europe due to recent austerity measures. But I have a bowl of coronation chicken and a birthday candle here sitting on my deck chair in the middle of the road. Mind you, the traffic seems a bit confused, but at least they're celebrating with car horns, says Paul. Claudius says, I demand Nick Abbot gets Donald Trump as an official crowd counter for accuracy. Yeah, biggest crowd ever. Well, find out how many people were in the square. A couple of thousand. It doesn't really make any difference, does it? There was a lot of people in the West End of London. That much I do know. It was like a football crowd. Everybody had a flag. Paddy says, you missed the point regarding immigration. People don't care about full employment. They care that their communities have rapidly changed in some cases to such an extent that they now feel alien to them and hence wanted more control over immigration, which leaving allows. Immigrants spend, so of course they create and fill jobs. That's basic economics. Doesn't mean we should have open borders, especially with a huge housing shortage. Okay, well, from the top, he says, people don't care about full employment. Well, people don't really... The amount of conversations I've had with people about full employment, they don't really know what it is. They think it means 100% of people unemployed, but it doesn't. A healthy economy needs a certain number of people to draw on, a pool of unemployed, a small pool of unemployed people to hire from. Otherwise, businesses wouldn't be able to expand. So it's essential that some people are unemployed, but not long-term unemployed. And we just don't have that problem in this country. Unemployment is not a problem that we suffer from. Their communities have rapidly changed, in some cases to such an extent that they now feel alien to them. Well, what's really bizarre is that people who complained about immigration the most, who cited it as their number one reason for voting out, were often in areas where there weren't any immigrants. You see that over and over again. I mean, I think with one exception, if you put the list of the most fervently out areas, they are also the ones which have the fewest foreign nationals living there. So it's not... to look at London, for instance. I mean, how London has changed over the last 10 years, or certainly the last 30. Completely changed beyond all recognition. And yet London wanted to remain, quite adamant about it. So the areas that have the largest immigrants, with one exception, wanted to stay in. So your argument doesn't ring true, Paddy. He also says immigrants spend, so of course they create and fill jobs. Yes, but they'd have to be doing jobs before they spent. That is also basic economics. And the housing shortage is down to us. You know, since the Second World War, Germany has managed to build, I think, 250,000 houses a year. Many years have gone by, we built zero, none at all. Why? Because people like the idea of houses being built, but not round where they live. That's the problem in this country, NIMBYism. We don't mind people, being put up, but not round here. Oh, there's no room. We're full. Ralph in Putney says, I drove through Parliament Square about 5 hours ago, and the scene before me was like a cross between a Saga holiday and a half-price sale. A half-price sale at Sports Direct. Soul-destroying that it's come to this. Brexit is an incredible act of self-harm. Well, that's what the world sees. You look at the foreign press, the world is, they've got their mouth open. They can't believe what we're doing. We are blind and deaf to reality because of the cacophony of cheering and whooping and God Save the Queening and flag waving. But we're doing something that no first world economy has ever done, has ever been daft enough to do, is to leave not just a trading bloc, but the biggest free trade bloc in the world. To sit alone, bobbing about on the sea, a money laundering racket off the coast of Europe. Other than that, what do we got? We're a big bank. We launder money for Russian oligarchs who then shoot each other in our streets and get away with it. Yeah, this idea that people are coming over here and taking our jobs, they're taking jobs that we don't want to do. And if, as I've heard so many times, that once we're out, we'll be able to send them back, push them back out to sea, and we will be able to take those jobs. Well, who wants to do them? It's like yearning for a return of mining. Who wants to put a hard hat on and go work a mile underground for 8 hours a day? Get emphysema. The good old days. I don't remember them well. And that's it. If you subscribe to this podcast, the next episode will get squirted up your life as though by magic on Mondays. Or sometimes, very occasionally, I'm late and it's up on Tuesdays. Don't forget the other podcasts that I do. There's the one called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, in which the delightful Carol McGiffin and I try to solve people's problems while maintaining a straight face. If you want us to have a bash at your issue, simply send it to the following address, nickandcarol@global.com. That's nickandcarol @global.com. And prepare for a mild amount of satisfaction. And there's the podcast that I do called The Whole Show, which is, as it sounds, the whole show from my Friday and Saturday night stints on the radio with the news and the ads taken out, which means it'll take less time to listen to. You'll use less electricity and won't have to sell your house to pay your fuel bill. And I'll be back on the radio Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.